Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
Well, we made it through Wednesday. Jack, how you doing, folks? And I guess I'm reporting to you from the frozen tundra. That's what it feels like out there right now. It's all ice all over the place. Streets, sidewalks, everything's covered in ice right now. So
from where, Mac? Tell our viewers from where. I mean, you're not even telling them where you are. I mean, they should know, regular listeners.
Yes. The regulars know. They definitely know. I'm from Connecticut. And like I said, it's covered in ice out there right now, Jack. So anyway, we've got NBA to talk about, NFL to talk about, Major League Baseball, a little bit about boxing, and of course the 1980 Olympics. That was really the last Olympics I watched, Jack. In 1980, 84, I ended up going into service, so I missed. I think that was it. I mean, real quick, speed skater Eric Heidman. He was got the last of his 5 gold medals. The men's figure champion wins the gold medal. I can't recall his name right now, and I don't have it in front of me. But he won the gold.
Wait a second. We're not talking about the 1980 Olympics because the United States boycotted the 1980 games.
I thought we were at Lake Placid.
Oh, Lake Placid. I'm thinking of the Summer Olympics. That's bad.
Right. That's fine.
Right. Yeah, 100% correct. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. I made myself look bad. There you go. I was trying to make you look bad, and it backfired.
It backfired on you. Okay.
Yeah.
So, the NBA, of course, they had the All-Star game. Steph Curry with the All-Star MVP. Jack, does that award, I mean, besides padding your stats or padding your awards to get into the Hall of Fame, does that mean anything anymore?
Well, yeah, let me just backtrack a tiny bit, then I'm going to answer that question. Right now, when you mentioned the Olympics, it kind of brought a smile to my face. At least that was the intention, because for my book on Michael Spinks, I'm working on a chapter right now in the 1976 Summer Games where he won a gold medal in the Olympics. And I make mention of Bruce Jenner winning the decathlon. And I think of a picture with Howard Cosell in the middle with Bruce Jenner and O.J. Simpson together, the ultimate good guys, the ultimate guy corporate America loves. If they only could have had a peek into the future, That's all they would have needed, with Jen and O.J. Simpson. What would transpire? What would corporate America have been thinking? As far as Steph Curry goes, these All-Star Game awards in the NBA don't mean anything at all. They do mean something in the NBA Finals. I think people make reference to that very unfairly because people are pretty petty when it comes to things like that. Steph Curry won the MVP award a couple of years ago in the finals when Golden State won the NBA championship. He hadn't won it before in the other 3 years that Golden State won the championships. If he didn't win an NBA Finals in 4 years there, people would have been petty. They would have said, well, he was never Finals MVP, even though it really wouldn't have meant anything. And you kind of wonder a little even this year, Mac. Let's say the Boston Celtics repeat. I mean, Jason Tatum didn't get the Finals MVP last year. It went to Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum is a better player than Jaylen Brown. You have to believe Jason Tatum's people are making him very aware of that. He's aware of it. The public is going to say, well, is he going to be the MVP? And if the Celtics repeat and Jason Tatum doesn't get the MVP, even though he probably would have played very well, they would have judged him against other players. Well, he wasn't a Finals MVP. So these awards, as petty as it is, okay, I think they mean something because the public always tries to create a narrative as far as judging a player's legacy.
Well, I mean, the MVP is for that championship series. It's not for all year round. So, I mean, Jaylen Brown perhaps had a better series than Tatum that series.
I'm not saying it's unfair, but I'm saying that's what people are going to judge at the end. Even Shaq, when he does this broadcast on TNT, he once got into an argument with Charles Barkley, and he says, you could look up the record. I was a 3 times Finals MVP. Like right. He uses it on the resume. And a guy like Kobe Bryant's his teammate, can you imagine Kobe seeing Shaq always getting the MVP? It doesn't go over as well on a guy's legacy per se. And even the Super Bowl, we've talked about it in football a few years ago when the Rams beat the Bengals. Aaron Donald should have been the MVP, but it went to Cooper Kupp. How do you think Aaron Donald's going to feel whenever they have a celebration of Super Bowl MVPs? They bring him back to the Super Bowl. They don't bring him. They bring Cooper Kupp, and he was more of a force in that game than Cooper Kupp was. I mean, so these awards, they do wind up meaning something, maybe not as far as the series goes, but as far as the public sometimes looking at a guy's legacy, sometimes they ignore things like that completely, and it's not important. But then again, it could create certain narratives that are unpleasant for certain stars.
I would agree with that. Chris F. Grave, good to be with you boys. As always on Monday, it's Holiday Monday.
There we go. I hope, Chris, you didn't boo the national anthem yet, United States.
I was just going to say, what his opinion was on that. If you get a chance, shoot us a comment on that, Chris, because we'd be interested in your opinion on that.
Well, the interesting thing very quickly, a lot of the Canadian players, they play enough games in America and they spend enough time in America, but they're proud Canadians up there too. So I'm not sure how the Canadian players felt about the American national anthem being booed. I would imagine a number of them were very uncomfortable hearing that.
I would think so too, Jack. Let's see. Let's get to Victor Wembanyama. Moves to number 5 in shirt sales. So he's slowly creeping up to become maybe the new face of the NBA in a couple of years, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, who is the face of the NBA right now? I guess LeBron still. He's the big name. I would think it's only a matter of time before it's Wembanyama. when LeBron retires or really slows up enough. When LeBron slows up enough, he is going to retire. LeBron's not going to hang around. He's going to kind of be a little like Joe DiMaggio, too much pride in his game, even though he could still perform to an extent. But if LeBron can't be a force, he's going to retire, okay? And, Wembanyama is going to be the face of the NBA. I mean, he's young. I mean, what is he, 20 years old or so now? It's great future ahead of him, a lot of years. You could make an argument right now if you want. It's arguable is what I'm saying, that he's a top 10 player right now. I mean, you can make a good argument, perhaps, a lower top 10 player.
So Chris says Boston Bruins booed the Canadian anthem, but the singer was butchering the song and they were actually booing her. All right.
That doesn't. Yeah, no, I understand that, but imagine how she feels if she's just having a bad outing, butchering the song. I mean, I'd assume she's prepared and just the moment maybe overwhelmed her. But I really find it distasteful, any booing of anything, unless you have a case of a player not putting out effort, okay? Let's say it's a baseball player, who's just jogging slowly, and then all of a sudden they tried to speed up and they're thrown out because they were loafing to begin with. Yeah, I'm okay with booing them then. Like, what's the matter with you? And you know what fans' behavior, this is a topic I meant to address with you, Mac. We see these players in all sports trash talk to one another. They say the meanest things sometimes to throw their opponent off their game.
Right.
And nothing happens. They're allowed to get away with it. But if the fans yell that out to the players, the fans now are going to get ejected if they get too personal. And the fans should get ejected under that circumstance, except if the players are allowed to say the same thing to one another, the fans should be allowed to say it as well. Everything should go. In other words, I'm saying the trash talk with the players has to stop.
Yeah. So he agrees with us, Jack. So I guess you're right. I mean, you do pay money for tickets. You're not, as long as you don't go past the, there's a line, right? Don't talk about somebody's family, their mother or whatever, wife. But you still pay for the ticket, Jack. And that's, we forget about that. We think, well, they should be able to throw them out at any time. I don't know about that.
But you can't cross certain lines.
Right.
LeBron had someone removed because they said something to the effect, I hope your son gets killed, or something like that. Say, that's what I mean. You say something like that, you should be ejected. And the league shouldn't allow you to come back for a period of time. There has to be kind of a code of conduct, but there's got to be that with the players. If the players can say anything they want to one another, then fans should be allowed to do it too. There shouldn't be two sets of rules. That's the point I'm trying to make, because it's total hypocrisy. Look, Carmelo Anthony, who's going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame this year, he once, after a game, went looking for Kevin Garnett. He wanted to fight, to attack Kevin Garnett, because Kevin Garnett, who was notorious for being a terrible trash talker, crossed a certain line. Even it happened with Gary Payton. I forgot who the player was, but Gary Payton went over the top with what he said. And Gary Payton was saying after the game, the player's agent saw Gary Payton's agent. The player was so distraught and upset over what Gary Payton was saying. Gary Payton then saw him to apologize because he went way, way too far. It's one thing you want to diminish a guy's game. I mean, if it's going to help you on the court. For example, when Michael Jordan was guarding Muggsy Bogues once, Muggsy Bogues is 5'3" tall. Amazing that he could play in the NBA at that height. But Michael Jordan called him a midget and dared him to shoot. Come on, midget, you're wide open, just shoot the ball. and Muggsy Bogues missed the shots, and Muggsy Bogues said it always stayed with him. It hurt his confidence. Was it mean-spirited what Jordan said? You could say that, absolutely, but he was also doing it within the confines of a game. I mean, he was ridiculing the guy's height, but it's the same in a way if you call a guy a skinny guy. Come on, skinny guy. Come on, fat guy. Come on, toothpick, or this, that, when you're on the court. You know, that trash talk, I even though I find it distasteful, it's not the same as telling a player who has a kid with a disability and bringing that up and mocking them.
Yeah.
Big difference.
So I think we both agree with that you know, that there is definitely a line. Good morning, Rick. Yes. So anyway, we'll let this go up real quick, and we got to push on to other things here.
Went up real quick. I didn't even see it. Man, that was quick.
There you go. Adam Silver says he was surprised by the Luka trade, but Dallas did what was in the franchise best interest. Of course, duh, we all know that. But since when is Adam Silver talking about every topic in basketball now? I mean, you know, I mean, he used to be my favorite commissioner. Now, I don't know.
No, these are just headlines that people are trying to garner. Leave Adam Silver alone. Everyone was surprised by the Luka trade. What's he supposed to say? I wasn't surprised. They asked him a question. Right. Were you surprised? I tell the story that 6 weeks before the Tyson Holyfield rematch, okay? I'm in Las Vegas. I went to cover the Pernell Whitaker Oscar De La Hoya fight. Evander Holyfield was there 6 weeks before his fight with Tyson to support his friend Pernell Whitaker. Flying back to New York, who should I bump into at the airport? Evander Holyfield. What a great story. I get an exclusive. I sit down with him, and I'm asking him questions, and he's tired. He's a gentleman. He's answering them. So I asked the most basic question. Do you anticipate Tyson being more ready than he was for the first fight? So he said it without any emotion. He says, yeah, I mean, he knows he has to be more ready because what he did the first time wasn't good enough. Yes, right. Simple answer. Nothing excitable at all. The headline on the magazine says, from Holyfield, Tyson had better be ready. It's like he's throwing down the gauntlet. You know, right. And it made it look like he's threatening Tyson had better be ready. He's gone, like Holyfield's all gung-ho, but it was a simple answer. And they make these things out to be so dramatic. Like, I'm not sure we're going to bring it up. Like they asked Bill Cowher. Bill Cowher mentions, yeah, I think the Steelers will talk to Aaron Rodgers. He has no clue, Cowher. He's not talking with anyone on the Steelers. I said it a while ago. I predicted Rodgers would go to the Steelers. He might not. But the point is, yeah, is anyone at all going to be surprised that if the Steelers just inquired to Rodgers, had a loose conversation, made a phone call, would you possibly be interested in coming to Pittsburgh? If we're interested in you, do you think you might be interested in us? Because the first thing you do, Mac, if you're the Steelers, you feel them out.
Sure.
You know? And the Steeler quarterback situation between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, it hasn't been resolved yet. Maybe they'll come back to one of those guys. But just the idea that they haven't resolved it yet means they're not completely sold on either guy. So they would keep their eyes elsewhere.
So back to Dallas real quick. Dallas Maverick assistant coach was arrested for aggravating assault with a weapon, Jack. And I mean, what causes a person? I have no idea what causes a person to threaten anybody with any kind of weapon, no matter what they say to you.
What bothers me when you hear something like this is seeing people ruining their careers. I mean, you do something like this, and if you're found guilty of it, okay, what other team is going to want to hire you. It's such like bad public relations for them. And if they do hire a person who commits an act like this, if indeed, the person's guilty, in any way of it, you put your career years on hold at the very least. I mean, the damage you do to yourself professionally, I mean, it's, I hate to see people mess up their lives. They have like really good jobs, good situations, and to just mess it up. But sometimes too, a person is falsely accused of something. So, you got to preserve judgment as well.
True. And in the NFL action, Andy Reid and the Chiefs want Kelce to return, but in a lesser role. I mean, if you're Travis Kelce, do you really want to play a lesser role? I mean, is that what you want? How to end your career? I don't know, Jack.
What do they mean a lesser role? He would be their starting tight end. I got to assume that. Who else is going to start ahead of Travis Kelce next year? That's what I kind of wonder about. So when they say a lesser role, I don't completely get it. Okay? Like I said, they're going to draft a tight end. Is a tight end going to be available for them at where? They're going, they're going to be drafting something like 31st or thereabouts, very late in the draft, in the first round. I just don't see it. If they could get a Brock Bowers type, yeah, they'll want to start him. But what do you mean lesser role? I just don't get it.
Well, he really didn't look good, Jack, at the end of the year there. He didn't look good in the Super Bowl at all. So I don't know if they feel that maybe he just was too tired, and maybe he didn't. We know he didn't train. He was with Taylor Swift on the.
You don't know he didn't train, but he couldn't have trained as well. Because let's be honest, if you're traveling around the world, you're going to Australia somewhere. You're on the plane. There's jet lag. Even though you're still working out, you're not working out with the same intensity. True. I mean, you're going to the gym. But it's like I make the joke. It's like studying for an exam with the TV on. You're still studying. You're still looking at the book, but you're not as sharp. You're not quite as focused. And I'm sure Travis Kelce felt he was doing what was needed to get in shape. But also the conditioning is year-round. It has to happen, go through the whole off season.
Yes. And Richard, yeah, I believe that's true too. They use weapons because they don't have the courage to stand across for someone. So, yeah. So Saquon Barkley warns the rest of the league that he's going back to the Super Bowl. Jack, I would expect him to say that. I wouldn't expect him to say that he's not. So, of course, there's a whole team that has to play just as well as they did last year to make that happen.
Yeah. Try to ignore the noise in the background. Things, happen here. But Saquon Barkley, I'd say, has the best image of any player in the NFL right now. I mean, he's really the all-American boy, more or less, that everyone loves Saquon Barkley. How can you not like Saquon Barkley? I mean, he gives this clean-cut image. You hear the story during the parade. He noticed the towel boy in the crowd. He grabbed him and had him, ride with him. That's awesome. How did he notice the towel boy in the crowd? I don't get this, But you can't make this stuff up. But, and you get the feeling there are no airs about Saquon Barkley. He's a plain, down-to-earth guy who everyone, likes. I mean, he came in the locker room, and in the Eagle locker room, he went over well. And listen, the Eagles are a great threat to go back and, repeat. But there are other teams in the mix. There were other teams in the mix. And we'll see how the offseason plays out. Certain signings are going to take place. Like, let's say the Detroit Lions sign a Myles Garrett all of a sudden, and they have Hutchinson coming back next year, who didn't play most of the year because of the injury, who wasn't there at the end. All of a sudden, the Lions, maybe they finally, could get over the top. Then they're the Packers, who could take the next step. I mean, there are teams out there who are going to contend with the Eagles, but the Eagles in a good spot, you know.
Excuse me.
I think the Chiefs are less likely to go back to the Super Bowl next year than the Eagles are. But there's the offseason, moves are going to be made, and things can change very, very quickly. I mean, listen, it was just 2 years ago that my Jets were favorite to a lot of people to maybe go to the Super Bowl. Now here we are 2 years later, and you could speak to 100, Riders media people to predict who's going to go to the Super Bowl next year, and is one of them going to say they think it's going to be the Jets? So things could change in a year or two pretty drastically. But the Eagles are very, very, very strong. They'll definitely be in contention to defend their title.
Well, I think in the AFC, you got three legitimate, not counting the Chiefs, contenders. You got the Bengals with Joe Burrow. You got the Ravens, who haven't been able to do it, but I think they're going to. The more you get there, the more you get a chance of getting to where you want to go. And the Bills, they beat the Chiefs during the regular season. So I think those three teams, Jack, have the best chance next to the Chiefs to get there next year.
I think you nailed it perfectly, Mac, because the three quarterbacks, you mentioned the Bengals, Joe Burrow, the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, the Bills, Josh Allen, and we kind of know they're not going to go their whole career, all three of them, without one of them getting over the top at some point.
Right.
And maybe, and their teams are pretty much ready now. The Bengals didn't make the playoffs, but arguably at the end of the year, they were as good as any team in the AFC. They were maybe the best team in the AFC when the season ended. But those early season losses prevented them from going to the playoffs. Lamar Jackson has been on the doorstep. He's been really, really close. Josh Allen, the same thing, on the doorstep. And wouldn't it be funny that the Chiefs get back again next year? I mean, I don't get that feeling that they will. I think when you lose a Super Bowl the way they have, I think it takes something out of you mentally, because I think a thing that motivated their players probably during the offseason was making history and three-peating. Now that they didn't do that, it's kind of hard to crank it up again with the same intensity as the year before. That's just my feeling. The players will all say they can. Had they beaten the Eagles in the Super Bowl and they were going for 4 in a row, I think they would have been motivated. Let's keep this going and going and going. But, they came short. What does Joe Flacco have to do with anything? What am I missing here?
I guess he was the Ravens quarterback at one time. Yes, he is. I think he is in the twilight of his career. I don't think he'll.
Well, he was a Super Bowl winning quarterback with the Ravens. Over a decade ago or whatever. But, so, he's a backup something. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, Richard. I'm here, sunny Florida. I hear it's the worst winter in the New York State area, the worst winter in a while.
Yeah, it has been.
Reports coming in.
It definitely has been. I think I'm not going to pick. This is not my official pick, but I think the Ravens really have the best shot to go to the Super Bowl, Jack.
I think you said the Bengals.
No, I think the Ravens are yeah. I think
I would, off the top of my head, I would kind of agree with you very extremely tentatively, and I'm not picking them per se. Yeah, it's too early. There's a good chance I wouldn't pick them when push comes to shove. But right now, because I think the Bills had their best possible year they could have had last year, it's going to be hard for them to duplicate it, certainly not better it. And the Bengals, they might not sign everyone. They might lose T. Higgins, and it's a hard one. You can't discount the other teams. There are other teams, and you could get a team like the Houston Texans, who have an excellent defensive unit, and they've made the playoffs the last 2 years. Really good young coach in D'Amico Ryans. Maybe they put it together with CJ Stroud next year. It's possible that, they wind up going to the Super Bowl. And I can't see certain of the other teams making a run like the Dolphins, the Jets. All due respect to Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers. I don't see the Chargers, going to the Super Bowl. But then again, the Chargers on the Harbaugh, what happens if they improve next year? That makes them, viable contenders.
Who's better, Denver or the Broncos?
Denver. I should have mentioned Denver. Under Sean Payton and their defense has really been good. Maybe Denver takes the next step and goes to the Super Bowl. I won't discount them. We put the other teams, like the Ravens, the Bills, and the Bengals ahead of Denver. But how much better are they really than Denver at this point? Maybe it's the Broncos, take the next step. And certainly if it's not next year, we expect the Broncos under Sean Payton in the next 2-3 years to take a very serious run at the Super Bowl.
Now, Chris is just saying anything now.
I mean, come on. I mean, for what? For what? As a backup quarterback?
Yeah,
I mean, Chris, you're sounding like Mac now, saying, well, you're going to let Russell Wilson compete with Lamar Jackson for the starting job. I mean, come on. Chris, they got Lamar Jackson. Let me go a step further. Russell Wilson is past his prime. In Russell Wilson's prime, he wasn't as good as Lamar Jackson.
Great.
All due respect to Russell Wilson, who was a very good quarterback in his prime, who's probably going to get into the Hall of Fame, I think. I think the voters will vote him in.
Eventually. I think he's done a lot of damage to his reputation in the last few years. I mean, I think some people should just retire, Jack. I don't know why they continue to play. Just retire. Go to broadcasted. Go to the Hall of Fame. Why are you continually putting yourself out there? You're kind of not what you were.
Well, you mentioned a point that's pretty interesting that people don't talk about, Mac, is can a player play himself out of the Hall of Fame in any sport? If you retire at a certain point, you're going to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't blame Russell Wilson. He enjoys playing the game. He can still play. He's not bad. He can start in certain situations. You put him in the right spot, a team could win with him, but he's not going to be a difference maker. The Pittsburgh Steelers need a difference maker at quarterback. They don't need a guy who's just going to manage the game somehow. They need a guy who could do a little more than just manage the game. And Russell Wilson, he did certain good things for the Steelers during the year. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't going to make a difference, in impact. Yeah. And that's why the Steelers haven't committed to him for next year. We don't know what Russell Wilson's status is even. He says he wants to come back to the Steelers. Some people have linked him to the Raiders even. But, we just don't know the landing spots for some of these guys. I mean, Russell Wilson for sure can have a job as a backup somewhere. Yeah. I mean, and listen, we never know, Mac. Maybe even a team like the Giants, they might whiff on Matthew Stafford. They might decide they don't want to draft Cam Ward or Shakur Sanders 3rd overall. That if Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter's available in the draft, those are great players. The Giants might want one of them, and they might try to roll with a Russell Wilson for the year. I mean, who knows?
I hope not.
Maybe the Jets even. Who knows? But Russell Wilson he's not the answer.
I agree. You remember Richie Incognito? I always thought that name was cool because it's like you don't know where he is. He's known for being a bully on the field. And one of his teammates, I guess he was bullying him back, got suspended in 2013. And now this offensive lineman, I think I got his name.
Jonathan something I forgot. Yeah.
Yes. He blames his parents for going ahead with this lawsuit. I guess they filed, or suspension that they ended up doing with the NFL. 10 years to clear their air, he says. I mean, what are you talking about your parents? If it didn't happen, didn't happen. If it happened,
No. Something went down. I mean, I don't know, but Richie Incognito had a reputation of being a real jerk.
yeah.
He really did. You got bad vibes with his reputation, this and that. But sometimes you don't know what goes on behind the scenes. You really don't know what goes on. And supposedly, you got to give me the name again of the player bullied, because Jonathan something, I hate to give a half a name, when they were with the Miami Dolphins, he kind of quit because he got bullied. But some of his teammates were saying, he didn't really get that. Richie Incognito got on him because he was like a little brother to him. So sometimes you have a little brother, you kind of abuse him in a way. I mean, you don't do it because you dislike him or anything like that. You come on. You're pushing him a little too far in a way. And there was a case years ago where this player, you got to get the name. You're bringing this up. Don't bring up a topic you don't got a guy.
I don't have the name. We'll get it for you.
But don't do that anymore, Mac, because I normally bail you out remembering the names, and I only remember half the name now.
Well, so it's your fault too.
I'll go on Jonathan. So Jonathan put out years ago, people don't remember, a post, and the police investigated. It seemed like Jonathan might be violent, trying to get revenge, and the police looked into it and they found no, it's not threatening, and they dropped it, But it's a story that people remember, because when you talk about bullying in sports, Mac, this is the story with Richie Incognito that we go back to. But bullying in sport, Jonathan Martin. Thanks a lot, Rick. I knew it was Jonathan someday. Thank you. That was Mac's job. Rick is always helping you out, Mac. I mean, he's he should make an assistant producer of this show. You have thick skin, Mac. That's what I like about you. I couldn't take all this bullying that I bully you. Yeah, I couldn't take it if you bullied me the same way I bullied you. But bullying in sports takes place all the time, and I can't stand it. You have this rookie hazing where the rookies have to carry bags, and this freshman orientation stuff, it shouldn't be allowed to go on. I think Jimmy Johnson said it once to the Dolphin rookies when he took over, as head coach. He says, if the veterans tell you to do something, tell them to shove it up their behind. That's what I kind of like. Rookies should not have to do the rookie stuff unless it's good-natured. If it's good-natured, like you get the veterans their newspaper, not that anyone uses a newspaper now, or a cup of coffee for the veterans if you're a rookie, that's cool. That's like, that's good-natured stuff. That's fun. You have to do your rookie business, because even the rookies would kind of get a kick out of that. I got to get so-and-so something for a year, but next year I won't be a rookie, so one of the rookies is going to have to serve me for a year. That's like in good fun, but beyond that, the bullying it's awful.
Rick says, don't get me in trouble with Linda, Jack. So there you go.
Yeah.
Listen, that hazing happens. I mean, I was hazed, Jack, back in when I was in high school. It was part of like the initiation, right? I mean, they shaved, put shaving cream all over me, and then we had to sing a song. I mean, it's just something that happened.
Mac, they kill, but players you hear occasionally die or something. It goes
well.
Mac, I mean, good-natured fun, where you're not going to be abused, where you're not going to be hurt, that you go through an initiation if you want to. Okay, but if you're making the player feel extremely uncomfortable, and you're violating them, Mac. They're being violated. They shouldn't have to go through that. I mean, I understand you say stuff's good natured, but listen, this isn't hazing. I mean, this isn't bullying. I mean, I understand that. So don't refer to it like I'm saying it is. But even the Gatorade thing, when they throw it over the coach's head and empty it completely, the coach at first is startled, and you could tell he's mad, and then he smiles and hugs the player and puts on the sack. I don't want all this Gatorade poured over my head, like thrown and soaked, where I'm going to be soaked in Gatorade and that sticky stuff until I can get in the shower an hour and a half after the game.
Come on,
And the cold weather, it's not
come on.
it's
part
not
of
a,
the. It's like a ritual.
it's a
I mean,
ritual, but it's not a pleasant ritual. It's 22 degrees out, and you have the cold Gatorade tossed on you.
yeah, I mean, it happened back when Carson did it to Parcells, and it's happened every year after that. So I mean, it's something that's acceptable, I think.
It's acceptable, but do you honestly feel the coaches don't mind that? For the most part, they wish it wouldn't happen. They wish it wouldn't happen, but it happens. You know, I can understand you win the Super Bowl, you're indoors, you get the Gatorade, but it's unpleasant. You're soaked in Gatorade for an hour and a half.
You just won the Super Bowl and you're going to complain about being covered in
No,
Gatorade.
they're not going to complain, but I'm saying the coaches don't like it. You know, I'll accept it as a ritual for this, Mac, that it should only happen in the Super Bowl, no other game.
Yeah.
Make it a one-time tradition. So any Super Bowl coach is going to understand, you know, you're going to get the Gatorade bath if you win. And they're going to think, okay, if we win the Super Bowl, I'll get the Gatorade bath. It's a tradition. I have to get it. Okay, when it happens, I'm not going to like it, but you know, I'm kind of ready for it. But it shouldn't happen any other game. A team makes the playoffs, they get the Gatorade thing. I mean, some of the rituals could get out of hand. The Yankees were doing things like a pie in the face after game winning.
Well,
and Derek Jeter didn't like it. Derek Jeter was singing as his amateurish. It's ridiculous, a pie in the face.
I thought you were going to say how they were doing the champagne after every win, like they won the World Series. Last year, the Yankees were doing that. I thought that was way over the top.
After every series, too, right. You win the division. You're having a celebration champagne in the head. The first division round, the second.
Yeah.
I mean, I can understand you doing it twice when you get to the World Series and then win the World Series. You know, but squirting the champagne on players isn't so bad because they're already in uniform. They're going to change. They're going to shower. You know, that's understood. But especially in cold weather, you're in Green Bay. Imagine the Packers, win, get to the Super Bowl, and Matt LaFleur in 3-degree weather gets the Gatorade bath. That's brutal. He could catch pneumonia in that weather.
Okay. All right, Jack. Back to baseball real quick. We just talked about Juan Soto has arrived at New York Met training camp. So the Soto story begins in New York.
Well, the Soto era begins for the Mets in this sense. When the Mets signed Juan Soto and the other teams had offered him, similar deals, it's a matter of not just what he does on the field, but he becomes a face of a franchise and increases the value of a franchise. And when you think of the Mets now, you think of Juan Soto. The Mets go to an opposing ballpark. You don't think of anyone else but Juan Soto. You don't think of Pete Alonso. Oh, the Mets are coming in with Pete Alonso. I mean, you think they're coming in with Juan Soto. He gives the Mets a genuine star, a genuine face of the franchise. Yeah, that's why, Richard, I need you as an assistant producer. Linda, why are you putting this on? We're talking baseball. Linda's great, but I gotta Say,
I didn't put that on, Jack. I control the board.
you put that on. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have known better. That it was Mac. Mac, why are you putting on Sam Donald while I'm talking about Juan Soto? Come on,
Rich, that's Rich's
throw me
Viking.
off my game.
That's his team. Good.
But with Juan Soto, he's going to be the face of the franchise. No ifs or buts about it. But you know what's interesting about the Juan Soto signing, Mac? He stays in New York City.
Yeah.
He was a Yankee. Yankees in New York City, Mets in New York City. Yet he's not going to be considered a New York City icon necessarily. He'll be considered one amongst the Met fan base if he performs, and he's going to be considered an enemy to the Yankee fan base because he left the Yankees. But I tell the Yankee fan base, get over it with Juan Soto. I'm a Yankee fan. Look, he played 1 year for the Yankees. He helped the Yankees get to the World Series. I wasn't crazy about the Yankees getting Juan Soto. I had mixed feelings when I got him from San Diego because I knew he might not stay beyond the 1 year. Yeah. That's where the problem lied. I knew there was a good chance he wouldn't, and it played out that way. But the bottom line is the Yankees got to the World Series with him the 1 year, so it was worth the deal for the Yankees to have him as a rental for 1 year. But now the pressure begins, for Juan Soto. And Juan Soto had all these teams bidding on him. And he recently said, it was so hard for me because every team made everything sound so great to go play for them. And what a tough decision. If I were a player, one of the things I would hate about being a free agent, Mac, is meeting with the teams. Because you hate to say no to people who are so nice to you. They're offering you a boatload of money. They're offering you this. They're offering you that. They're making you feel like you're family to them. They're so nice. And then you got to let all these teams know you're not going to go to their team. You're only going to go to one team. So it's hard to reject all the teams, when you have to finally pick one.
Now, for some reason, my eye is starting to run now. I don't know why. I don't know if you're making me cry, Jack, or it's just a thing that's happening here. The Yankees have injuries coming, and they have a couple problems of their own. You've got a pitcher that doesn't want to be a relief pitcher, even though he's getting paid the same. You've got our home run hitter who played really good, and I think he was a major reason why the Yankees made a run to the World Series and played pretty well in the World Series, who's hurt again, Jack. So, what do you take from that? Do you think that, do we get rid of Rondon, or do we, if
Rondon,
he doesn't...
It's not Rondon, it's Marcus Stroman.
Stroman. Do you get rid of him because he doesn't want to be a relief pitcher, or do you keep him?
Mac, they want to trade him. It's not that simple. Do they want to get rid? They want to move on from Marcus Stroman, the Yankees, but Marcus Stroman is getting paid like $18 million. Yeah, I think 18.5, and they can't get rid of him so easy. No team wants to pay that type of money. He performed really poorly last year. They left him off the World Series roster. That's how poorly he performed at the end of the year. And yeah, sure, the Yankees can get rid of Rondon if they pay $15 million of a salary. But what sense does that make? They may as well hold on to him at that point. Right now, Rondon would be the sixth starter. The Yankees are going with a 5-man rotation. Garrett Cole, Max Fried, Carlos Rondon, Louis Gill, and Clark Schmidt. But if one of them has to miss any starts for whatever reason, you can slot Marcus Stroman into the rotation at that time. And then you see how he pitches compared to the other pitchers in the rotation, notably Clark Schmidt or Louis Gill. And if he's pitching better, then at that point you can keep him in the rotation. Maybe he could claw his way back into the rotation. But for now, if all their starters are healthy, there are no spots for him in the rotation. unless they're makeup games, double headers, the schedule gets crowded. So what the Yankees would have to do is use him in long relief. And Marcus Stroman has to reestablish himself as the type of pitcher he was when the Yankees got him to begin with. And by Marcus Stroman saying, I'm not going to relieve, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. If the Yankees need him at a certain point, if they need him to pitch a few innings in middle relief to kind of save their bullpen, rest their guys, and he refuses to do it, that's reason to suspend him. That's reason to suspend him. I mean, he signed a contract, I understand, as a starter. That was the idea. You know, it doesn't say as a starter, but he didn't live up to his end, Marcus Stroman, because he didn't pitch well enough.
Yeah, I agree. In boxing, Jack, we got some boxing news in this day in history. In 1970, Joe Frazier knocks out Jimmy Ellis in 5 rounds. That made him the heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah. Well, that you make a great point. You said it good, Mac, because it was a unification fight. It had when Muhammad Ali wouldn't go into the service, he had his title taken away from him. Muhammad Ali wasn't allowed to box. He wasn't allowed to defend his title, which is flat out wrong because he had a right not to go into the service. And then there's due process in the court of laws. Okay. And so he never should have gotten suspended, to begin with. But while he was suspended, they had the WBA, World Boxing Association, had an 8-man heavyweight tournament, the 8 best heavyweights in the world. They had to go to number 9 because Joe Frazier wouldn't enter the tournament. He refused. So they had an 8-man tournament and was won by Jimmy Ellis. In the meantime, Joe Frazier was given recognition in New York State and Pennsylvania and a few states as champion when he knocked out Buster Mathis. But Ellis's claim to the title was stronger than Frazier's. But eventually they had the unification match in New York, February 16, 1970 at Madison Square Garden. And Ellis was retired on a stool at the end of the 4th round by Angelo Dundee after he got knocked down twice. And then Muhammad Ali announced his retirement shortly before that fight, saying he's done with boxing. Whoever wins the Frazier-Ellis fight, he's going to give his belt to, blah, blah, blah. So when Frazier beat Ellis, he became the heavyweight champion because Ali retired. Now, if Ali didn't retire, you know what that would have meant, Mac? The following year when Ali met Frazier in the fight of the century, Ali really would have been the defending champion because he never would have retired, never lost the title in the ring. But because he retired, it was fair to consider Joe Frazier the world heavyweight champion going into the fight with Muhammad Ali, and Ali was the challenger because Ali retired voluntarily, had given up the title.
There is a new book out, boxing book, Jack, just came out. Bob and King, about Bob Arum and Don King. I don't know if you've seen it yet or not, but
no,
maybe
I haven't
worth
seen.
No,
I haven't seen it. I mean, it's funny. For the book I'm writing on Michael Spinks, I've talked with Bob Arum and Don King, and the good part about King and Arum, they've always been accessible. I mean, especially Bob Arum. King picks up the phone, but he normally doesn't have much time to talk. He's nice and all this, but Arum will give you the time of day, and very, very accessible at all times. And just think of this. Both guys are 93 and technically still active promoters in the business at age 93. I mean, that's kind of awesome.
Yeah. Dave, I wish you could have made it in earlier because we're coming to the end of the show right now. Me and Jack, we found some more sports to talk about, Jack. I mean, the All-Star game, and we go back in this day in history and all that stuff. So,
well, you brought up memories with the Olympics. You mentioned Eric Heiden, but every Olympics, you wonder what's the most famous part of the Olympics. And it was the United States hockey team in 1980. But Eric Heiden with the speed skating, I mean, he was really, really popular,
Yeah.
during that time. The Olympics were bigger then because you didn't have all the cable channels. You didn't have as much entertainment for people to go to. They didn't have their iPads, their computers where they could, go online and find anything. They didn't have cable TV, like 132 channels to play with. So they had basic television. That was sit either that or get a book and sit down and read. So at that time, everyone watched the Olympics, Mac. You didn't have to be like a sports fan. I mean, the Olympics were the thing to watch. And now if the Olympics are on, I don't think people just tune in for the Olympics and keep the TV on for the heck of it. They look at other, alternatives.
I think so too. If I'm not mistaken, too, Jack, Eric had a sister who competed in speed skating too. Like I swear, if I can remember, he had a sister that competed. I'm not sure if she won a medal or not, but I'm almost positive him and her both competed in 1980.
Well, sometimes you get siblings. I mean, for some reason, it's in the genes that they're successful. Sometimes it seems more than a coincidence. If one is really, really good, that the other is going to be good too. That's not always the case. I mean, Larry Holmes had a brother, Jake Holmes, who wasn't, a fraction of the fighter he was.
Right.
And it does. See, you do get cases where one brother isn't as good as the other. Canelo Alvarez, the boxer, he has brothers. Like it all depends. But sometimes it seems to be in the genes, like the Mannings at quarterback. I mean, as athletes and football players, why are they so good? Even the one, Cooper Manning probably would have been an NFL receiver at some point. Son Arch is going to be an NFL quarterback. Now Peyton Manning's son, supposedly in junior high school, is looking good. So what could I tell you?
Definitely. Folks, thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Rich and David and let's see who else we have with us. Chris F. Grave. And thanks for all the views and comments and stuff. You make the show go. Just a reminder too, we are on MBR on Mondays and Wednesdays. So if anybody out there is MBR listening, thank you too. Hopefully shares later. Have a great Monday, folks. Am I right? Yes, Monday. All right. Take care, folks. Have a good one.